Week 7 Giants Hangout brought to you by Crestron. My name is Madeline Burke, joined by Russ Salzberg and Matt Sytek. Guys, Giants coming off a tough one on Sunday Night Football, falling to the Bengals 17-7. They were already without Malik Neighbors. They were already without Devin Singletary. Kayvon Thibodeau, who just had wrist surgery, was out. And then, of course, left tackle Andrew Thomas goes down with a foot injury. Uncertain how long that injury is going to take him out of the game, but you look at this moving forward, this is the Giants offensive line that's played every snap together this season, now taking a big hit, Russ.
Well, listen, you're talking about, arguably when they talk about the best player on the team, a lot of times they talk about Andrew Thomas. But, it's got to be next man up. If that's the case, I'm assuming it would be Josh Izudu. But, we'll find out more. I'm sure the Giants will, tell us more later. But listen, offense has to improve. I mean, it's not a secret that they first of all, you need to score touchdowns, especially when you're at home. You need to get the job done. But the other thing that as I was sitting in the press box watching the game yesterday, Sunday night, it was bothering me that we have talent. The Giants have talent at the receiving situation. But the one thing that bothers me, this is the National Football League. It is not high school. It is not college. We know, no, Daniel might not have had a perfect game. We would all agree with that. However, you got to help your quarterback out. We have too many drop passes across the board. And, again, it's the NFL. If you can touch a ball, go make the play. And we just miss too many chances to make a play, and that doesn't help out your situation for your quarterback and your offense. I think that's a major thing that needs to improve on, and sometimes it's not spoken about enough. We've got talent there, whether it's Slayton, whether it's Wandell, whether it's Hyatt, and we know Malik. I got to say this: we didn't miss Malik in Seattle, but we sure as heck missed him last weekend. I mean, Malik is one of those guys that can make those kind of plays. So that's what we need to see across the board.
Yeah, and just, first in terms of Thomas, I mean, Russ mentioned it. It's got to be the next man up. And Madeline, you talked about, or you mentioned some of the other guys that have missed time over these last 2 weeks between Malik Neighbors, Devin Singletary, Kayvon Thibodeau. Well, over the last two games, we saw Azeez Ojulari step in for Kayvon Thibodeau and have his best game in years on Sunday night against the Bengals. We've seen Tyrone Tracy step up for Devin Singletary, and in Seattle had a breakout game, and even against the Bengals thrived, matched Darius Slayton for the team lead as in receptions and receiving yards. And with Malik Neighbors 2 weeks ago against the Seahawks, Darius Slayton went off for his best game in years. So we've seen guys on this team step up for the injured starter and thrive. And that's what the Giants are going to need, for however long Andrew Thomas is out. And we, as Russ mentioned, we don't know if it's going to be Josh Izudu necessarily stepping in at left tackle, Jermaine Illuminor maybe moving from right to left tackle, and then Evan Neal coming in. We don't know yet, but whoever it is that takes over in that open spot on the offense line needs to step up and, perform like we've seen some of these other reserve players step in and step into the starting lineup and thrive over the last 2 weeks. And, if it is whoever it is at left tackle or right tackle, I think one thing that the Giants can do just to sort of help that player is, maybe keep a tight end in to give a little chip block before going and running a route, have running backs sort of chip the edge rushers from the Philadelphia Eagles before going out. There are things that they can do to sort of, you're not going to just necessarily replace Andrew Thomas.
No, you're not going to replace Andrew Thomas. That in itself is a problem in itself. You're not replacing him.
You can't replace him. He's one of the best tackles in the entire NFL. And whoever comes in is not going to play quite up to the level, the all-pro level that we've seen Andrew Thomas play at. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the offense is going to, just crumble without him. There are ways that they can patch things together and still get by and still be able to run this offense productively, even if Thomas is out for however long he might be out for.
Right. And we've seen kind of the benefit of having an offensive line in which all five players have been playing together consistently for 6 games, and the comfort that comes with that for the quarterback position, like you said, got to be next man up. And we saw that on defense. Kayvon Thibodeau goes out, has a wrist surgery. Azeez Ojulari has to step in. It's given the opportunity, rises to the occasion, has 6 pressures and 2 sacks. According to PFF, his 6 pressures were tied for third amongst edge defenders in week 6, 2 sacks tied for second. Giants defense has been good. The Giants defense did enough to win the game on Sunday night. They put pressure on Joe Burrow. They got to the quarterback. They have been a solid unit. And if this Giants defense can continue that going into week 7 against, a quarterback like Jalen Hurts, who has been known to turn over the ball. I mean, this season alone, he's thrown 4 interceptions, 5 fumbles in 5 games. You look at the way that the defense is playing and the opportunity here to capitalize on that. Can this defense really help this Giants offense kind of get an opportunity? I mean, realistically, the Giants offense has to score, but the way the defense has been playing has been significant.
No, listen, Dave said it right after the game. You hold them down. I mean, basically, they had one touchdown until the last 2 minutes of the game.
And that one touchdown was a Joe Burrow 57-yard ridiculous run.
I'm glad you brought that up, because as much as and kudos to the defense, the way it's played, and you mentioned Azeez Ojulari, that might have been his best game as a Giant. That's how good he was. And especially coming in to stand in for Kayvon. But Madeline, you brought that up. So as great as the defense was, 2 plays I'm going to talk about, 2 plays. One was the Joe Burrow play, 3rd and 18. 3rd and 18, and Joe Burrow is running down the field like he's running to a wide open pasture, just running by himself. That was one play. You can't have that happen. And listen, we've seen the Giants have bad starts. That was a bad start. We saw him with a bad start against Seattle, and we saw him with a bad start against the Cleveland Browns. Fortunately, the Giants won those 2 games. So that was 3rd and 18. And then let's fast forward to the end of the game. And believe me, it's hard to knock the defense because they played so well. But at the end of the game, when it's 10-7, and I believe it was 2 minutes and 12 seconds left in the game, Cincy has the ball, 3rd and 12 on their own 34, and they complete a 29-yard catch. That iced the game. They didn't have to score that touchdown. That iced the game. When you have that, you can't allow those big plays to break your back. We don't come up with enough of those big plays, both on offense and defense. That's what the Giants need to do. Make those big plays when they must be made.
Yeah, well, I just want to know one thing on that 3rd down play that Russ you just mentioned. I will say that there was a very questionable no call on Brian Burns where he looked like he was sure getting held by the offensive lineman as Joe Burrow started breaking outside.
Okay,
and if they threw that flag, then things could look a lot different. But I do get your point. Like, it is a good point. And you mentioned some of, I guess, the defense played great. So I don't want to say, the negatives, but the bad plays that occurred on Sunday night, I just want to focus a little bit on the good that the defense did against the Bengals, because they definitely deserve a ton of credit for keeping the Giants in that game for as long as they did. So going into Sunday Night Football, the Bengals in the previous 3 games had scored 33 points at least in each of those contests. They had an average of 417 total yards of offense and no less than 23 first downs. Those are 3 games going into the Sunday Night Football. The Giants held them to 17 points, 304 total yards of offense, and only 13 first downs, all of which were their lowest marks since their week 1 loss to the New England Patriots, a game that the Bengals have talked about as sort of like their throwaway game. Joe Burrow came into Sunday Night Football with 4 consecutive games with multiple touchdown passes, 12 total touchdowns in that 4-game stretch, and an averaging over 300 passing yards and a 117 passer rating. Well, the Giants held Burrow to 67.9% of his passes completed, only 208 yards and 0 touchdowns, 89.6 passer rating. Again, all of which were the lowest since week 1. And the
And
Bengals,
also,
Yeah,
oh,
but
and just to add
Matt,
though too that opening drive, that first touchdown that
yeah,
Joe Burrow ran, it was a one play of busted coverage type of a situation. So it's not like these, they were eaten in a way. It was like, oh, here's a moment of busted coverage and then a late game garbage time touchdown.
right. Well,
yeah,
no, listen, Matt, nobody's disputing how great they played, but we can talk about the statistics till we're blue in the face. The bottom line is, as Madeline just said, one at the beginning, one at the end, and those two plays stick out because those were the plays that ended up, when you do the math, that's what buried you. You got
But
you
but
got to
for those
prevent yourself
plays,
but
against
the
but
those
for those
defense,
plays.
plays, the Giants defense did a really great job.
Yes,
It was
yes,
two plays,
overall,
and overall it was a really great performance, but for those two plays.
right.
the defense played at a level where the Giants should have won that game, is what
Right.
I'm at. They
Yeah,
Yeah.
held the
I
Bengals.
get you, but you know what? As you say, woulda, shoulda, coulda doesn't get it done. Overall, the Giants coulda, woulda, shoulda won that game, but they didn't. And all I'm saying is
Right.
we have to make sure, if the other team is making those big plays, the New York Football Giants have to make those big plays to prevent what happened last Sunday from happening again. That's all I'm saying.
That's fair.
Yeah,
That's
for
fair.
sure. There's no argument here. It's just the defense only plays on one side of the ball. Can't control what the offense does. And so all I want to do is just give some kudos to the defense, because Sunday night was, a primetime game in front of had the national spotlight on them. And the defense came to play and they stepped up and they performed at a level that the Giants I don't want to, shoulda, coulda, woulda, but they could have won the game with the way that the defense played. And it sort of just highlights how great that unit has been playing since week 1. I mean, they have become now a top 10 defense in almost every single important metric in terms of points allowed, yards allowed, red zone defense. I mean, they are in the top 10 in just about every single key defensive metric. And so if the defense can continue to perform at that level, which I get that might be a big if because they've been playing so lights out, if they can continue playing at that level, it will keep the Giants in games and give them more opportunities to win games as we move forward in the season.
Well, and the defense has been playing well, like you mentioned, in all these stat metrics, leading the league in sacks. Dexter Lawrence, second most sacks in the league, 7 through 6 weeks. Getting pressure on the quarterback, but offensively, we've talked about it. We want to see a spark. There might be a spark. We will see as the week progresses what Malik Neighbors' status is. If he is cleared to return, what Devin Singletary's status is. Neighbors, of course, coming back from a concussion. Singletary dealing with a groin injury. If and when Singletary does get back on the field, it'll be great to have that kind of two-headed monster of Singletary and Tyrone Tracy, who has been a decisive, effective runner. And we see this trend across the league. Matt, I'm sure you could talk to this, is that, a lot of teams have found success with a running back by committee more so than just one power back.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you see some of the best rushing attacks across the NFL feature two guys, and as well as a quarterback that can run, which we all know Daniel Jones can obviously run with the football. He was the Giants' leading rusher on Sunday night against the Bengals, averaging over 5 yards per carry. So yeah, if obviously Devin Singletary returns, as great as Tyrone Tracy has played, it's not just going to become the Tyrone Tracy show. Devin Singletary has gained the trust of this coaching staff. Brian Daboll, Joe Shane brought Devin Singletary in after being in Buffalo with him for numerous years. So yeah, Devin Singletary is going to certainly have a role. I don't know what the split might be between Devin Singletary and Tyrone Tracy. I think Tyrone Tracy over the last 2 weeks has certainly earned himself some amount of touches on the offense. He earned himself some role. I mean, he was, as I mentioned earlier, he was the Giants' leading receiver on Sunday night. He tied with Darius Slayton, 6 receptions for 57 yards. The guy is a former wide receiver converted into a running back, and we've seen it over this past week. And then the week before that, Tyrone Tracy had no action in the passing game really, but thrived as a rusher. So he's shown that he can do both, and he's shown that he can be explosive. I mean, both of these running backs have done a tremendous job of forcing missed tackles. before getting hurt, Devin Singletary led all running backs in missed tackles forced. And now Tyrone Tracy over the last 2 weeks, I think he has had 8 or 9 missed tackles forced, which if he had that pace for the whole season would put him right up there among the leaders as well. So yeah, having Devin Singletary return and mixing him and Tyrone Tracy throughout the game, that should add another element to this offense that's going to, really help this unit moving forward.
And another element to the running game on Sunday that is going to have a lot of headlines around it, because we've made it this far without mentioning that Sunday, week 7, Giants hosting the Philadelphia Eagles. Welcome back to MetLife, Saquon Barkley. The first time we're going to see Saquon in green in this building. It's going to be a weird day for him going to the visitors' locker room, coming out the other tunnel. But I'm sure for Giants fans too, it's going to be a little bit of a, oh wow, this is a moment, Russ.
Well, not just for Giant fans, but also for the Giants. We've been talking about Devin Singletary and we've been talking about Tyrone Tracy. And, I mentioned to you last week, Madeline, when we were talking about it, I used an old boxing expression in the fight game. When you punch, you need to hit with bad intentions. And I find that Tyrone Tracy runs that way. He runs with bad intentions. He wants to make something happen and, taking it to the next level. I'm sure, whether they're going to say it or not, everybody's going to say the same thing. Well, yeah, now he's an opponent. We have to go against him. And, the offense is not playing against Tyrone Tracy and Devin Singletary they're not going to be facing Saquon on the field, but they're going to be motivated. Okay, we replaced this guy. They're going to be motivated, and let's see what that motivation can do. Yeah, it's going to make for a very interesting game for a couple of reasons. One, both teams need to win the game, okay? And the Giants certainly need to win the game. They need to do something at home to get the fans revved up. It just so happens that Saquon is coming in, so that just adds to what the need is.
Yeah, and this past Sunday, obviously to a much lesser degree, but we kind of saw a former Giant have his revenge game against the Giants in the form of BJ Hill, who I know it's been a few years since he's been here, but the way he played Sunday night, it was clear that he was very motivated in his return to MetLife Stadium, at least to face off against the Giants. He had a tremendous game, was all over the field, and that's BJ Hill. And BJ Hill is a great player, but he's not Saquon Barkley. So Saquon Barkley is certainly going to come into this matchup motivated and fired up. Especially considering he's coming off his worst game of the season. Last week against the Browns, he struggled, and it was the first time that we really saw him struggle as part of this Eagles offense. So he's definitely going to come out with his hair on fire, looking to make a huge impact. And the Giants defense is going to have to be ready for him. I mean, I spoke before about how great the defense has been playing, and the Bengals offense, again, had been playing like one of the best in the league. But the Giants defense, historically, at least in recent years, has had trouble slowing down this Eagles offense with Jalen Hurts at the helm. And the Eagles are now healthy with Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, both back at wide receiver, Saquon. They have Dallas Goedert at tight end. This is going to be another very tough challenge for the Giants defense, and it starts with slowing down Saquon.
Right. Well, and also you mentioned, though, that the Giants have struggled defensively to slow down this Eagles offense. But again, like I mentioned earlier on in this show, Jalen Hurts' turnover issues could be something this Giants defense, the way that they're playing this season, really feeds off of. Again, Hurts thrown 4 interceptions, 5 fumbles in the last 5 games. The pressure that the Giants defense has been able to put on opposing quarterbacks, combined with the way in which they have been playing overall, I feel like this is something that if the defense capitalizes on, it gives the offense a short field and perhaps the offense is able to convert there. This could be a different kind of ball game.
I like what you just said, Madeline, and to me that's very important. Giving the offense a short field, that I think will help the situation as well. And we've been talking about how great the defense is. I mean, Dexter Lawrence is playing like he might be the defensive player of the year in the NFL if this keeps up. I mean, he has just been what do we say, 7 sacks thus far?
7, yeah.
7.
I mean, listen. We know how good the defense has been playing. They just have to keep it up. And again, everybody, both on offense, the Giants need to make the big play, the really big play when they need it. And on defense, they have to make sure they come up with the big play when they need it. It has to get done. When we talk about metrics, Matt, you were talking about metrics. The bottom line metric is the Giants are now 2-4. They have to improve on that. They're still in this to win the division. But again, coulda, woulda, shoulda doesn't get it done. They have to get it done this week. It's a must to get it done this week for two reasons. They need a win, and it needs to be a division win. So go get the job done, both offensively and defensively.
Yeah, I mean, you're 100% right there. The Giants, despite their 2-4 record, they're only 2 games out of the division. And this seems like the most wide open the division has been in years. There's no like clear cut favorite right now. It's going to be very tough, though, for the Giants to win the division if they do lose this game, because if they lose this game, not only does their record drop to 2-5, but their divisional record drops to 0-3. And it's going to be very hard to climb out of that hole. So you're 100% right, Russ. This is as close to a must-win game as you're going to get in week 7. And I think one of the biggest keys to this game, which I feel like this has been a theme just about every single week for the Giants, but I think the biggest key is going to be performance in the red zone. And that goes on both sides of the ball. The Giants offense has not been great in the red zone. They rank, I think, somewhere like 24th or 25th in the league in red zone offense. On the flip side, as I mentioned earlier, they have the 7th best red zone defense. Now the Eagles are coming in with very, very similar numbers. I think the Giants and Eagles rank next to each other in both red zone offense and defense. So they have had similar strengths and weaknesses, so to say, through the first, few weeks of the season. So stopping the Eagles when they get to the red zone and capitalizing when the Giants offense, when they get inside the 20-yard line, is going to be probably the biggest key to getting a win on Sunday.
Absolutely. And we're going to continue to monitor the injuries and everything as the game gets closer. But week 7, grab the popcorn. The Eagles coming to MetLife Stadium. Giants Eagles, it's a 1 p.m. kickoff. We'll be there. We'll be monitoring it all. And we'll be keeping up with the latest on Giants.com for the injuries and whatnot as the storylines continue to unfold. But that's a wrap for our week 7 Giants Hangout, brought to you by Crestron. For Russ Salzberg and Matt Sytek, I'm Madeline Burke. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. We'll see you next time.